The date is April 28th, 1996. The survivor is Simon Sam Leiser, name at birth Leiser. The interviewer is Martha Fraser. The city and state are Riverdale, New York. The country is the United States of America. The language is English. It's Martha Fraser, M-A-R-T-H-A, F-R-A-Z-E-R. Today is April 28th, 1996. I'm conducting an interview with Sam Leiser in Riverdale, New York, United States of America, in the English language. Please state and spell your name.
Sam Leiser.
Could you please spell it?
S-A-M-L-E-I-S-E-R.
And could you please state and spell your name at birth, when you were born? In Polish, what was your name?
Yes, Szymon Leiser.
And how do you spell Szymon?
S-Z-M-O-N. I'm sorry, I have to repeat it. S-Z-Y-M-O-N.
And what is your birth date and current age?
June the 21st, 1924. Current age is almost 72.
And could you please state and spell your city and country of birth?
Yes. City is Krakow, K-R-A-K-O-W, Poland, P-O-L-A-N-D.
Could you please tell us about what Krakow was like while you were growing up prior to 1939?
Krakow was a nice, clean city. The average was 2-3-story building, not high buildings. And I live in an area where there was Jewish area, which practically this was a ghetto in the old time already. There were mostly Jewish people living in this area by the name Kazimierz. This is named after a king by the name Kazimierz, which was very good to Jewish people. And in this area, mostly, it was quite a big area, lived about 60,000-70,000 Jews. And I lived in this area before the war, till I came to I was transferred from there during the war.
And Krakow was a fairly large city.
In comparison to the country, it was a large city from 400,000 people.
And was it renowned for universities?
Yes. There was a known university by the name Uniwersytet Jagielloński, which is one of the oldest in Europe. Jagielloński, I can spell it. It's Y-A-G-E-L-O-N-S-K-I.
Now, can you please describe your family?
My family were 7 children altogether. My father, of course, was a religious Jew, Hasidic Jew. Was my mother very, very religious. We are running a very strictly high kosher house. And then I had 7 children. The oldest one by the name Mania, M-A-N-I-A, was the oldest sister. She was, I just remember lately, she was doing ladies' hats. She was very good in it, and she made good money in it. The next sister was the name Esther. She was working as a manager for a store by the name Lichtig. It was a big store, we had a couple of stores in the city. Then come my brother, which by the name Fiver, which is still alive, and he was working together with my father in a small factory of men's shirts.
Now this was a factory that your father owned?
Owned, and my brother was a cutter in this factory. Next come my sister by the name Basha, B-A-S-I-A. She was a teacher. She was a teacher in a Jewish seminarium, we called it. And then come my younger sister. She was She was still in school, but later on she was already short before the war, so she learned how to make special collars for the shirts, which you have to fit them very exactly. She learned that and she did that. Oh, I forgot one brother. Then one brother, which I missed, was before her. One brother, his name was David. He worked in a factory where they make curtains. Actually, and then comes the sister. Her name was Tonka, Tonka. Then was I. And I was still the only one which did not work yet. I was still in school and yeshiva. Before the war, I was already in the yeshiva, by the name Yeshiva Beit Meir, which was the biggest in Krakow.
When you started school, did you attend yeshiva from the very beginning, when you were very young, or did you go to a Polish school at all?
Yes. I went to a Polish school in the morning. In the afternoon, I went to a private school, another school, was a rabbi. In a little room, he had a couple of students. Later on, I attended Talmud Torah, which was a big school, private school, where you learned also in the morning, you learned Polish, and in the afternoon you learned Gemara and so on. And just shortly before the war, I entered the yeshiva at Beit Meir, and I was till the war in this yeshiva. Because when the war started, so we still keep learning in the basement, or we're hidden, because we couldn't do it in the open.
Now, when you attended this Polish school, how old were you?
When I attended the Polish school. I was 10 years old.
And was this school have Jewish children and Polish
This
children?
was an exceptional school. This school was a government school. But the girls were Jewish and non-Jewish together. The boys were boys separate, Jewish boys separate, and Gentile boys separate. It was the same building, but a separate wing for the Jews. And it's called, like I said before, Shoah, which means School Kazimierza Wielkiego. This is after a big king, which I mentioned before. And this school I attended my 3rd and 4th grade only. Later on, I went to the Talmud Torah, like I mentioned, where I was learning both in the same school.
Now, did you have much of a relationship with the Polish boys?
No, not at all.
You basically
sometimes we had fights sometimes because they used to throw stones or this. So. But being this was also in the Jewish area, they didn't dare to put us too much trouble, because they knew it's a Jewish area and they would be beaten up practically, even though they are Polish a majority, we were a minority. But this area was the majority was Jewish.
And when you attended Talmud Torah, was this also in the Jewish area?
Yes.
So you're protected by being in that area?
Yeah, I was all the time living in this area.
And you did you venture out of this area very much?
Being I was wearing pais and so on, though we didn't go out much of this area, because when we went out of the area, sometimes by the Polish people, by Polish Jews, we were attacked or thrown stones. So we were mostly living in the area, which is but the area called Kazimierz, which is very known in whole Poland.
Now, when your father in his factory was making the shirts, did he mostly sell to other Jewish people, or did he have much to do with the Poles?
No, mostly Jewish people, but we sell the shirts not only in our city. We had a salesman, he sold a lot of shirts in Schlesien, which is near the German border, and no matter Jewish or non-Jewish, companies which bought the shirts through salesmen.
Did almost all the Jews in Krakow live in this particular area?
No. Jews which dressed modern, didn't wear like beard, didn't wear pais and so on, they lived spread out. Quite a lot of Jewish people live all around the city. But Jews like us, which were which were wearing, you know, the long coats and pants and beards, and this is mostly, not mostly, I would all of them, stayed in the area of Kazimierz, which was the strictly Jewish area.
And can you tell us about your synagogue there? Was there just one synagogue in the area, or were there several?
At that time, the synagogue were not as modern as now. There was all kind of rabbis, and each rabbi more or less had his own synagogue. There's each kind of chassidim, like a sect, I would say. And this were plain houses, could be even a building, a normal building. Here there were 2 rooms, there was a synagogue. In this synagogue we prayed with my father and all of us. They were also big synagogue also, which are not Hasidic, has nothing to do, which are not reformed, but was like conservative, everybody could come in there. There were big synagogue, a lot of them also. And also there was one temple which was strictly, I say, this temple was, I say, not conservative, but
Reform?
reformed. Yeah. It was one temple which was reformed, only one. But a religious Jew wouldn't go in there. But the temple was also used when somebody went to the army, the soldiers, they have to be sworn in. The Gentile people were sworn in the church. There were also plenty of churches in my area I lived there. And the Jewish soldiers were sworn in this temple when they entered the army, sworn in to allegiance to the country.
Now, prior to 1939, did you or your family have much knowledge of what was happening in Germany?
Yes, we knew what was happening in Germany. As a matter of fact, in 1938, a lot of German people already had to leave Germany because they were Polish citizens, they were not German citizens. And we already opened up the open kitchen for them to help them, you know, because a lot of German Jews came to Krakow, and we settled them down sometimes in a synagogue and sometimes private houses. We picked up a family or whoever could afford in order to settle these people, to help these people. Some of them came with money. They were good ups. They could rent apartments, but some of them were very poor. They came just what they had on them in a suitcase. And but a lot of them still came with money, and they could help themselves. Or that to be ordered to rent, in order to rent an apartment and to live on their own. They start looking for jobs, start dealing a little bit.
So there's quite a large number of these people came to Krakow, to your area,
to my area
after the Polish action in Germany.
Right.
Did you have any thoughts that this could affect Poland? That there could be an invasion?
At that time, I was too young. To worry about the political situation, but we also, what I heard between all the people talking, we didn't believe that this will happen in Poland.
What was the first sign of the German invasion in Krakow? Was there fighting in the city?
No. In my city was quiet. The war started on Friday, September the 1st. On Wednesday morning, around 11 o'clock, the Germans came in. There was no fight, there was nothing. All we had from the Germans a couple days before was a couple bombs, you know, fell on the radio station, on the railway station. The German came in, we got out from the basement for the bomb, we came to our houses, upstairs, out from the basement. They came in, nice and quiet, and we lived near a big like a kikar, how you call it, a big area. Used to be a market before. They stopped the truck, they started undressing, wash himself, and nothing was quiet, was no problem. But a couple of days later, a couple of days only, they started to take people from the city to work, to do the work for them, like wash cars. And my grandfather my mother's father, he didn't really realize what's going on. He was living a couple houses from us, the same block. So he went to the street to come to us to eat, or they caught him and they cut his beard and knocked him down the floor, and some people picked him up, bring him to our house, and I didn't recognize him. And just cut his beard short, but still plenty on. So that's the way it started. The first couple of days that we had to catch people just on the street like this, and then they confiscated all the stores, all the business. They were confiscated. In the first couple weeks, they put in a little bit bigger business. They put in a commissar, they call it, and he was running the business. You were just a worker there until they liquidated all the merchandise and they took all the stores.
So
whatever we could do, we took out from the stores whatever you could before.
In other words, you knew this was going to happen, so you took out the shirts and the material?
You took out not all the stores. If there was our store, also everybody could took out whatever he could took out to the house. And the rest was a lot of stealing from the Polish people, and the rest, whatever left over, they took everything over, and there was no Jewish store. This didn't happen right away, but after a couple of months.
Within a couple of months, your father's factory was taken?
Was taken.
So then how did your family start to live without the factory?
Because we managed to get out some merchandise, raw material, I mean not shirts, but textile. The way the material is rolled, we managed to get it out from the store ahead of time. And then we start slowly to selling and to do business with Polish people, and so that we managed to make a living from this, what we got out from the store, and we did a little bit wheeling dealing with this merchandise, and of course we have already limited in food and everything, but we managed to survive.
Now, when the Germans came in, you were still in school.
Yeah.
How long were you able to continue going to school?
The German came in, I was only in the yeshiva. I didn't go to school anymore. I was only in the yeshiva.
Yeah, and how were you able to continue?
And then, no, the first day they came in, all the schools were closed. They took over, matter of fact, they took over all the schools for the soldiers. All the schools almost. The Polish schools, they divided. They took half, and half of the Polish people could go to school. The Jewish schools, they took over completely. And some of the smaller schools, people just moved in. We had a lot of people from all over coming from other cities, like from Germany. So some small schools, people just moved in. Instead of the school, it was an apartment for people to live.
Was there an attempt to continue educating the children underground?
There was an attempt, but mostly like my age. But the smaller children, whatever people do at home, privately, parents try to bring the children up to teach them to read and to write at home. But my case was still, the rabbi there was hidden, I remember, and we went to him underground, and we still learned a little bit till about 1940, till about winter time. Winter time got dirty bad, and we just have to live daily, go to work, to shovel snow, and always, especially young people.
Now, when you worked, was this because you were taken off the street and
No, they took off the street. It was not organized yet. Later on, there was they call it Jüdische Gemeinde, which means they ordered right away a Jewish magistrate, it would be, where all the Jews had to be registered, and then they put right away in order. This was already September, and November, December, they put an order. We got all this armband to wear the Star of David on our arms. And they practically ran the city for the Germans. They ran the Jewish affairs for the Germans. And then they confiscated all those Jewish people which didn't live there, they lived spread out of town. They all had to move from all the other places. And this was going on till about 1941. 1941, they start to prepare a real ghetto, which was in Podgórz. Podgórz means an area which was across the Vistula. We live near the Vistula, and across the Vistula it's called Podgórz. It's like a suburb from Krakow. Over there, they start to build a ghetto, and a lot of people ran away like us from Krakow to a small town where there was no ghetto yet.
So first, the area that you lived in
was cleaned out completely.
Well, before that,
yes.
The people that were more modern and lived in the surrounding areas of Krakow were forced to move into the neighborhood that you lived in.
Yeah,
that was what happened first.
At first.
Was that neighborhood then closed off, or was it still open?
No, it was taken over by Germans. They needed apartments, by other Polish people, by Ukrainians, which they were.
Right, and everyone was moved in. Now, you remained in your apartment because you already lived there.
I remained in my apartment because I lived there.
Right. Did they put extra people into your apartment, or you all just were able to stay where you were?
No, let's say like in our house was one gentle family. The family moved out because they didn't want to live in this area. So some from the people from other areas came and took over this apartment, or sometimes have a very big apartment to share with these people. No, they went to family. Everybody has some families. They went, so we didn't live so comfortable, but we had to share apartments with people who moved in from other areas.
And were you and your family picked to work at different jobs during this period of time? Shoveling snow, or what were you doing during this time?
At that time, in the beginning, was not so organized, but then the Judenrat, which means the Jewish magistrate, the Hila called, they send you, you have to come to work tomorrow morning, you have to be on the airport to work by the airplanes, to work by this. So it was already more organized. The Germans gave him the order they need 500 Jews. They picked up from this street so many. We went, sometimes we went to a place, we were loaded on a truck when it was out of town. And we went there, we had to go to the airport and clean the hangars for the airplanes from the snow, or clean the streets where they live.
And this, you would be called to do this, your father too?
No, my father's, being we were 3 brothers, so we went to work, they let my father go for the time being.
And the women weren't being picked to do these things now?
No. Later on, there's women working as maids, by the Germans.
So when you weren't picked to do this kind of work, what did you spend your time doing while you were still living in your apartment?
Yeah, so we went there, worked the whole day.
You were picked almost every day to work?
No, not every day, but whenever they needed people, so it came out, sometimes came out 3 times a week, 4 times a week, whatever. And then I came home, and next day the same. But in the beginning, it was not, it was plenty of people, still, at that time was still about more people than before the war. Before the war was about 65,000 Jews. But then coming all those people from Germany, from Austria, so we were about 70,000 people. There was plenty of people, plenty working power for the Germans,
I'm just wondering whether you or other people living in your area had any form of organizations, social or cultural organizations that you attended when you weren't working?
No, this was, first of all, this was forbidden, just like a school. What we had organized, or my sister did organize one, open kitchens. We had kitchens for people like from Germany or wherever they came from. They did people, let's say people like a teacher. He was not a businessman. He was a teacher. The next day there's war, he didn't have what to eat. That have to be the flight from Germany. Our people didn't have what to eat because He had a school, he went to teaching, he became his wages. Now the school is not school anymore. There were thousands of people involved in work like that, these professions. So they were open kitchens. Whoever had money, we organized. One kitchen was right next to my building, and the people came 3 times a day. They got fed whatever was possible to give them. They should be able to survive. But the people was really this sort of people like teachers. They were the worst up because these people didn't have the mood and the guys to go to beg around or to fight or to make some wheeling, dealing. You know, in the war you always do some. This is people, intelligent, quiet people. They are sitting there and starving. As a matter of fact, one day people were walking how my father did it. We had a Polish people we know and out of town. My father made a deal with one Polish farmer. He brought to bring a whole big wagon with potatoes. Potatoes at some was like orange, it was gold. And my sister had a right downstairs, 2 buildings away, she had a little stove where she makes the hat. There was no more stove. We put the potatoes in there, we locked it up. While we were unloading the potatoes, he brought it in sacks, so people from the window, she saw the Germans, 2 Germans passing by, just like a spy, just passed by, and they start screaming, unload fast, even though they had nothing to do with it, just for fun. And people from the window, they saw, they came down to help, you know. My father himself was carrying the potatoes into the store, and there was a step. Each time, I remember like now, each time I came to the step, they pushed my father, he should fall. We unloaded the potatoes, and they let us go. We went back home, this was Friday night. And then, what happened with that, my father said he organized Tomche Anim Nistarim. This is a Hebrew word, I explained what it is. This is organization, small, I couldn't call it organization because only a couple of people who had a little bit money, you could organize it into support in order to buy the food. There are people, like I told you before, teachers, which were poor, means anim, they were poor, but they were hidden. They were not going around and begging because, and I took the potatoes, my brother, my other brother, some other guys, I took a bag of potatoes. I went to my rabbi used to teach me, or to my teacher from the school, or to other people we knew they starving because they have nothing to live from, and they don't go and beg. We brought it to the house and we ran away because we didn't want to embarrass them. So I brought the potatoes to her house, and about how long but everybody was wondering, was nothing got to it. How did my father manage it? He brought the whole wagon of somehow it came through, and we unloaded and then we divided. And to these people, especially to these people who are not able to feed themselves by going from house to house and begging, you know.
So at this point, it seems that the Jews were able to try to feed the people who were starving.
Right.
They were trying to help each other.
There were rich people too from before the war, and they were trying to help the other people, which we had this kitchen right near us, was before the war, this was a little factory.
This is an interview with Sam Leiser. We were talking about the period of time between the Germans coming in September 1939 until 1941, when you were still able to live in your apartment in the Jewish neighborhood in Krakow. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention about that period of time, about what people were doing, how they were surviving?
At that time, people were already to starve. It was really bad. There was a big, lot of people died, you know, just for sickness, starvation, because medicine was also not enough medicine to help people which got sick. And in 1941, was about in the summer, we decided half of our family to go out of Krakow because they were talking about ghetto. a real ghetto, which was across the Vistula River. So, me, my brothers and two sisters, we went to a small town to our friends, we had good friends there, by the name Gorlice. When we lived there, there was still not bad. There was no ghetto, easier to get food, closer to the farms, and we lived there till a couple months later. The rest of the family, with the ghetto was started to build, the rest of the family came over, and we lived in this town, Gorlice, managed. We were also over there, we have to move, because there was not a real ghetto, but there were streets where we and the Jewish people not supposed to be there, so we had to move again and to move again, till finally we lived in a little bit out of town, but still belonged to the city, in a small little house. And we lived in this little house, and I had to go to work, my brothers had to go to work, and my sister went to work for the Germans. And we lived there till end of July 1942.
Now, at the point that you moved from Krakow, you were allowed to move freely wherever to
because
Gorlice?
no, the Germans they wanted to have Krakow Judenrein. Judenrein means clean from Jews. They allow us to go. We had a special permission to go by train. Otherwise, you couldn't go by train. You could, whoever wanted to go, go. Just move out from Krakow. There was such a short period of time.
You could go wherever you wanted, or
no, well, we could go wherever you wanted, but we have to pick up a place where for the time being, was not so bad. The wind-up was, there was the people were killed anyway, wherever they were. But at that time, was still, and we always lived with the hope, especially as religious people, that with the time the war will end. So you have to live at that time from day to day.
Now,
First
you
of all,
knew from these friends that lived in Gorlice that conditions were not too bad there.
There was one of these friends, a very good friend, used to work for my sister. She was very close, she used to make the hats, and then she went home, and then she says, you come to us. They were quite good up people. She worked because she wants to learn the trade. And we came to them, and we have an apartment, a small apartment, of course. But like I said, then we have to move a couple of times while living in this small town. In the small town, sometimes I took off my arm, I took off my Star of David from my arm, and I went to the village, and I managed to bring some food to the house. I bought some textiles, what we have left, and other stuff, some ladies wear or what, which farmers were anxious for, and I brought some, whatever I caught. Sometimes I brought potatoes, sometimes I brought a sack of wheat or corn or what. And once I got caught by Polish, without the armband. This was terrible. If they caught you, the Gestapo could beat you to death. By a Polish officer, by a Polish policeman, but he let me go. I started begging him, he let me go. So from that time I was afraid to go. And I did it all the time. I was in the concentration camp, I did it too. I went to take off the armband from the Baustelle. Baustelle means the place where you work on the tracks, on the railway. I used to go to the city, people I knew, Polish people, and they gave me something, they gave me sometimes give me some money or give me something to eat. And I had to come back before they go to the barracks, because they go to the barrack by the entrance, we were counted. So I had to come back on the Baustelle. That means I had to come back on the place where we worked, and smuggle me, nobody should see, because we were at that time at work, there was no Germans, there was only Ukrainians. they were worse than the Germans.
Are you talking about when you were in
I'm
Plaszow?
talking already in Plaszow. Yeah.
Can we go back to Gorlice for a minute?
Yeah, sure.
How was it organized there? Was there a Judenrat there?
Yes, there was a Judenrat, and the Germans, whatever they needed. I worked a couple of days, sometimes quite a couple of weeks. I worked in a factory that make boards from wood. You know, they make
Lumber.
Lumber. In a lumber factory, they make this for the barracks for the Germans. You know, I worked there for quite a while. Then I worked also in a German factory. It was Polish before the war. I was in a German factory where they make paper for the roof paper. You know, we had to soak it in tar, and there I worked till the end. In this factory, it was a big deal to work there. Whoever worked there had permission to go out of the because as we out of town, this was out of town. I had permission. We worked in this factory. We were working there for quite a while, and me and my brother, which is not alive. The other brother was still at home, and once it came when they cleaned up all the city from the Jews, my brother, which is still here, he was hidden in our factory, but he didn't have papers. He worked there. He just was hidden there. We gave him something to eat because the whole place was rounded up and cleaned out from Jews.
Which place?
This Gorlice.
Oh.
Yeah, this happened in July 1942.
Okay, so now when your whole family was in Gorlice, was everyone assigned by the Judenrat to a certain job?
No, just my sister. One sister worked, and all three of us work. And my
Three
father
brothers, but your father and mother didn't work?
Oh, my mother died in 1940. She had an operation and she died on a woman's operation.
Still in Krakow?
No, in Gorlice.
In Gorlice she died?
Yeah. She died. She was in a Polish hospital, and they were not allowed for Jews, but somehow we managed to. So she was laying there as a Polish woman, nobody knew, but she had an operation, she didn't get up anymore. And she was buried in the cemetery in the city in Gorlice. This was also 1941.
Now, the area in Gorlice where the Jews lived, it was not enclosed, but you were not allowed to go to other areas.
We were not allowed to go to other areas, but there were certain streets where Jewish people lived, so it's pretty spread out. That was the good things of it, because we were not enclosed, we were not, there's no gate or something or fences. So we could move around, there were Polish people next to us. Some helped, some didn't help, We had some Polish people which helped a little bit,
Did you mostly get your food by trading, or were
you? By trading. Managed to by trading, but we got car rations, but very little. The rations were very little what we got, The Jewish committee, they had their food, and every family got so much, a little bit jam, a piece of bread, and it was very poor, couldn't live from that.
So then there came that point where Gorlice was made Judenrein also, except for the factory where you were working?
They was Judenrein, except this factory and the other factory. The other factory was what I said, the lumber.
So did you then live in the factory?
No. They put us they made one street, two streets, a small ghetto. Very small ghetto. And we lived there not short, so maybe a week or two. And then from there, they picked out, I forgot to tell you, before they organized the Germans, the small ghetto, most of the Jews were loaded on the train to Belzec. And some older people were shot on the spot on the cemetery in Gorlice. Now, my father and my sisters were loaded on the train in Gorlice while I was working in this factory. This factory happened to be by the station. I could see it. One of my sisters in Tonka, the youngest, came to the window, and I have some apples I threw her, but nothing were reached, you know. Ukrainians were walking around, they wouldn't help, you know. And this was, yeah, end of July. And this was we didn't know where they are going, but later on, we found out from the Polish people who was running the locomotive, the machine, the engine, who was running the train, that they went to Belzec.
Did you find this out while you were still in Gorlice, that they went to Belzec?
Yeah, we were still in Gorlice, we were still in the small ghetto in this factory.
And you found out where they went?
Right.
Did these Polish people that were running the trains?
I didn't see these people, but this was a talking town, was because we had still some connections. First of all, where I worked with Polish people. We had still some connections. We found out that this went straight to Belzec, which was a Totlager. Totlager means death camp. It's not a working camp.
You knew that there were death camps already then?
Yeah, at that time, the first time we knew.
You knew. That's when you first found out?
Yeah.
Did you know about how they killed people, about gassing at that point, or you just know
At
they
that
disappeared?
time, I don't think so. I don't think so. We knew, but we knew already as this is
Death.
a death. You know, it was a shurim or what we didn't know. But later on, we found out that it goes by gas. They killed the people there, and.
So left in the factory were you and your brother David?
Yeah, we went every morning to the small ghetto, and every morning we came to the factory. And the other people came to the other factory. And some people were still in the small ghetto doing nothing.
And your brother Fievel was being hidden by you in the factory?
My brother, no, then he came to the small ghetto too.
Oh.
He was just hidden the couple of days. They were shooting people, killing people, and loading on the trains. It took a couple of days. Later on, he was in a small ghetto, and one day we got up in the morning, they picked out names. Everything the Jewish people did for them, picked out names. They picked out me and my brother, 200 people to get out from the ghetto. The rest was staying there. My third brother was not on the list. It means that my third brother was still in the small ghetto, while me and my brother, 200 people, were loaded on two wagons. We went to Plaszow.
Okay, let me just stop a minute. Is this your brother Fievel who went with you to Plaszow, and David remained behind?
No, my sisters went with the father.
I know, but the brother that went with you.
The brother was Fievel. He went with me to Plaszow.
And David remained.
And David stayed there. What happened later, we don't know.
What happened?
We heard later they cleaned up. There was not many Jews left. They cleaned them up. I heard that he went to a ghetto in Rzeszów, a small town, but this is not clear. We never heard from him anymore, and we don't know up to date. We talked to people and this, and we've heard that he was somewhere in Rzeszów. This was a city a little bit east of Krakow, where I have an uncle there, but this has nothing to do with the uncle. He happens to that one of my uncle live in the city, but this has nothing to do. My brother just went by transport there. If it's true that he was there and he died there in this somewhere.
Before we go on now, I just want to ask one more question about Gorlice.
Yeah.
Who, aside from the Judenrat, who was watching the Jews or the guards? Were they all Ukrainians?
Ukrainians.
And how were the Jews being treated while they were working, while they were there? Were they brutal, or were they, were there people being taken and beaten, or?
No, at that time, these people who work, at that time, they still need the work. They still need this like where I work, they need this for the barracks, for the Germans, they need the lumber and this. So we are not treated bad at that time yet, but the Ukrainians, they like to beat up somebody just for fun or so, or somebody ran away, or they caught somebody, he didn't work, he didn't move fast, they beat him up. And because at that time we did productive work for them. So we did productive work for them, so they, but the Germans couldn't watch every Ukrainian. Every Ukrainian, he did whatever he wants, you know. The German was, he came once a day or what, and watched over or talked to our men with the cap or the head. And once in Gorizia, what happened to me once was we went out of town from the Jewish, I call it Magistrate, let's be this way, Jewish Gemeinde they call it. We went to Shabbos now out of town because the street was narrow, not the street, it's a highway, but we can't call it highway, very narrow. They couldn't pass by the Germans, so we have to clean up, make room, they should be able to pass by with their cars or trucks. And one day they took us to a small airport, very small airport, just for the German army. And we had to clean up so the plane should be able to go into the hangar. The hangar was, you know what the hangar is. And we had a foreman, was Jewish, Kleinzoller, what's his name, from Krakow. This was all in Gorizia. He says, you know what, you have to work all day, let's say till 5 or 6 o'clock. He says, you know, let's finish, make the way clean for the German, we go home. We walked like horses, we cleaned up, we finished a clean way for the planes to come in and out. We went home around 3 o'clock or something. The German came, there's no Jews, where are the Jews? They're supposed to work till 6 o'clock, where are they? They came after us. They didn't find all, but they found me and another bunch of guys. And we told the Germans that we didn't go home on our own. The foreman said that it's finished, we go home. The foremen, they didn't do nothing. Either they didn't find them or what, I don't know, so they didn't do, but the foreman works for them. Not officially for them, but, you know, still, you know, like a hand for them. And they put us in there was one building where there used to be a school, and they beat us so up. They beat us. I was all sworn here. And they put us in the downstairs in the basement. It was cold, was laying there, we were laying on the cold, beaten up. In the morning, we had to go back to work. So we couldn't work, so somehow the head from the Jewish magazine worked out with it. That they let us home. We were wounded bad, they let us to go home. And one of my brothers stepped in and said me, he went of my place. And I was home for quite a couple of days. One arm was completely swollen. Everybody had a different place. There was one boy, he was small, little boy, young, you know, they let him go, they didn't hit him. Somehow, as bad as they were, this little boy, he was young, he was short, he wasn't so young. They let him go, they didn't beat him up. They started beat up, and I went home, we still had a home. So I could lay down and compresses and so on. And then we were there, like I said, till July, when the general transport came to it. So also, the transport was maybe a couple hundred Jews, but maybe half of the city was killed on the spot. Mostly older people. On the spot, it was on a cemetery, was a factory from shoes. They gathered all the people. I wasn't there. I was still in the factory from the German factory. Day and night we were there while they were shooting up on the hill the people. And after a couple of days, like I said before, we were still. They took the people out, and they took us out to the small ghetto, and we were there till, I think, beginning of August. This was 1942. This small city was Judenrein, was clean. Nobody there.
So then you were put on a train to go to
Then we were
Plaszow?
put on the train, 200 people. We went to Plaszow, back to Krakow, where I come from, by coincidence. And in Plaszow, we start to work, and we had a little bit money yet hidden. And we were in Plaszow there for quite a while. I have the date with me in my packet.
Now, tell us about the conditions that you were living in Plaszow.
And Plaszow, so whoever had a little bit with him, he could manage. Otherwise, he had to live from whatever they gave you. They gave you, we had bread, nice piece of bread, you had soup, soup at night, and whatever. There were some people who had a little bit money, had a little bit help, so sometimes they give help to other people, you know.
Well, if
some
they had
people-
money, where would they buy the food from? Who would be selling them the food?
We had the money, yeah. We had the money. When we went to work, from the Polish people, sometimes they brought something, a piece of cheese or something, which is...
So you could trade the money for
You
some
can
food
trade the
while
money
you were
for
working?
some food while I was working, not in the camp. And the camp was wires, and there were the Ukrainians around and we couldn't do nothing. The only way we got connections, we went to work. We went to work to another city to clean up the Jewish houses, the furniture. They brought back food. They brought back. Sometimes they made even money. You know, they did in the places where they selling Jewish furniture. So Jewish people were loading it with the Polacks. So everybody did whatever they could to survive. And I was working for a company by the name Siemens. The company is still here, still existing. We were working there, then we were working by another company, Esther company by the name Meyer-Rede. And then one day Meyer-Rede said, we don't need you anymore. So there were a couple companies, but my group, which worked for this company, they took us in a barrack. They closed up the door, they wired up the windows, they're going to kill us because the company doesn't need us anymore. So we are there sitting and praying and saying, my brother, goodbye. It is because they told us, you don't need it, they're going to take us to Gete. This was a small camp next to Gete. Gete was what's his name?
In Schindler's List.
Schindler's List. We were not far away, across the road. We were about
in a smaller
in a
camp.
smaller camp. And there was Miller, was his name. He was the commandant of this.
Maybe you can reattach your microphone, which fell down. Are you going to pick that? Okay, so now you were in a smaller camp, and the commandant of the smaller camp's name was Miller.
Yes.
And what kind of a person was he?
This Miller is so. He was every couple of days he killed people, just like that. So once he killed some people because from the Baustelle, from the workplace, Meister means the head from the company, which he works for, like Siemens company. He complained these Jewish people, they are lazy, they didn't want to work. He killed 7 people there. And at that time, when they caught him, the Polish people got him after the war. And for this one, he got hanged in Poland.
You're talking about Ammon Geth now.
I'm talking about Miller.
About Miller. So
Yeah.
he was cruel as well?
He was not cruel. He was not cruel. I'll tell you why. Because he knew if his people go, he will go too. He loses his job, you know. And that time, but the wind-up came. They liquidated our camp, and we had all to go to where Schindler was, to Gate. It was a big camp. We were there only a couple of days.
So the small camp was closed earlier than the large camp.
The small camp was closed earlier than the large camp.
And so did this Miller lose his job then?
Yeah, I know. He went to Czechoslovakia or to send him on send him to to the army.
So he was hoping to keep the camp going and to
Yeah.
keep you people going so that he could stay where he
can
was.
He can have his job.
Now, you mentioned earlier, this was when you were in this small camp and working, that sometimes you would take off your armband and go into Krakow
Yeah,
because you
but
knew the town?
Not from the camp, only from the place where I work. I knew the streets and everything because I was born there. So there was places where we walk on the railroad. This was before the war. We went for a walk. It was a nice area there, like parks, and they cut everything through. It was a cemetery, a Polish cemetery. So from there, I used to go once in a while to people which used to do this. We gave away to contractors, like Polish contractors, you know. You call it here contractors. Small Polish people, they did the shit work for us. So I went to them to help me a little, and I came back.
And they did.
And I risked my life too, because they caught you, they even didn't bring me to concentration. Some people they caught, I wasn't the only one. They killed them on the spot.
But when you went to these people, they gave you some food. They didn't turn you in.
No, they didn't turn me in. No, but they didn't want me to stay. Says, we give you just go, just don't stay. They were shivering, they were worried.
They didn't want to be caught helping.
Yeah, not because on helping, because they have a Jew in the house. You know, so they were supposed they had their orders too, probably from the Germans. And you see a Jew here, what is he doing here? There's no more Jews here. You have to report him, and the Germans either they take you back to the camp or they kill you. But when I was already in the camp, it means that I escaped from the camp, right? If I escaped from the camp, I was caught in the city. A friend of mine who used to live in Golice, not far away, they killed him on the spot. They caught him somewhere, not in Krakow, but not far away from the camp, Prokocim, which was a small area where, matter of fact, the factory was there, his Schindler's factory was there.
Now, so the work that you did when you were in the small camp at Plaszow, you worked on railroad tracks?
Mostly, yeah. There was most railroad. We built new railroads. We built those big thing for the railroad to make the high dams, you know, like a dam, you know. And most of the time in Plaszow was the work outside on railway tracks, most of the time.
And then sometimes you were working in a factory?
Not in Plaszow.
Not in
Never
Plaszow.
worked in a factory.
So you mentioned the time that they weren't needed anymore and they were going to kill
No, this
everyone?
was the exception where they finished their job. This company, every company had a job to do. We finished, we worked